Hi, I'm Harald Maartmann-Moe, and I'll be presenting our paper Prototyping and Prototype Use in Participatory Design with Older Adults, a systematic literature review, which I wrote with my colleague Suhas, Govind, Joshi. This systematic literature review aims to build our understanding of how participatory design practitioners are using prototyping and prototypes with older adults. Through this understanding, we can develop our methods in prototyping and prototype use and better involve older adults in participatory design. We focus on prototyping and prototypes because historically the use of prototypes has played a central role in bridging various activities of participatory design processes, yet their intention, application, and understanding varies widely. This paper concerns both prototyping as an activity and the use of prototypes as concrete manifestations. In this study, we use quite open definitions of prototyping and prototypes to include diverse perspectives and avoid narrowing our search down to fit our preconceptions. We view prototypes as any representation of a design idea, regardless of medium, and we view prototyping as designing and building prototypes. We sought to answer the research questions: how are prototypes and prototyping used in participatory design with older adults? What forms of prototype use and prototyping are used in participatory design with older adults? Who participates in these forms of use? How are these forms combined? To build this understanding, we did a systematic literature review. The desired data for this review was the set of participatory design work that includes older adults as participants and mentions prototyping or prototypes. This translates to 3 elements: participatory design, older adults, and prototyping or prototype use. We implemented the search in this manner, and this yielded 76 studies. Through text analysis, we formed 10 categories to describe the various prototyping and prototype use in the primary data. These categories are purely descriptive, and they are refine, evaluate, motivate, generate, explore, teach, decide, communicate, understand, and contribute. The categories relate and overlap, yet they maintain distinct intentions and effects of prototyping and prototype use in these 76 studies. I find these categories themselves helpful for understanding prototype and prototype use, but we wanted to better understand the prevalence and relation between these categories. To explore this, we used the categories to categorize each study's use of prototyping and prototype use. This table includes all 76 studies and is very difficult to read in this presentation, so I'll zoom in very soon. But the table is still meant to give a visual impression of the prototyping and prototype use. The cells colored in green indicate that prototype use involved older adults. Those in yellow indicate that researchers were involved, and blue indicates both. We can see from here that evaluate, the second category, has a lot of green cells, which indicates that older adults were commonly involved in prototype activities that meant to evaluate. We can zoom in a bit on a few lines. Here in the third row, we can see that Lindsay and colleagues use prototyping and prototypes to explore with older adults. With this data, we can easily apply some statistical methods to help us understand the patterns and prevalence of each category use. In this overview, we can see that the most common form of prototyping and prototype use with older adults in the primary data was evaluation. 67% of the studies included older adults in this way. More than half of the studies also use prototypes and prototyping to understand. The least common form was used to motivate. Only 7% of studies and only older adults use prototypes or prototyping to motivate. We can also look at how these categories are combined. This table shows a correlation matrix for the occurrences of prototyping and prototype use in these studies. The data is mirrored in this table, so you only need to look at one side of the black line of cells. Examining how categories of prototyping and prototype use are combined sheds light on potential overlapping and connected categories, as well as forms of prototyping and prototype use that are combined or belong within the same traditions. The strongest positive correlations were between explore and generate, explore and teach, and motivate and teach. There were fewer negative strong correlations, the strongest two being 1. Communicate and evaluate, and 2. Teach and refine. These correlations are interesting, but we can also use a method called principal component analysis to explore patterns between more than 2 categories at a time. This statistical method can suggest a more concise set of categories that aims to maintain the original set of categories' ability to describe data, essentially looking for underlying factors. The principal component analysis produced 3 components that could account for 50% of the variation in the dataset. The strongest component consisted of motivate, generate, explore, teach, a bit of communicate and understand, and the absence of contribute. This indicates that these categories together may form an underlying factor that describe prototyping and prototype use in the primary data. There is also a third component with a strong connection between refine and evaluate, as well as the absence of communicate. The 3 components produced by the principal component analysis may suggest 3 different practices of prototype and prototyping use in participatory design with old results. On its own, the third component seems to fit better with user-centered design than the focus of participatory design. However, evaluate and refine are immensely helpful in any design process and the inclusion of participants. These forms of inclusion may be less straining for participants and may therefore be widely used. This would be a considerate explanation. Still, participation through evaluation and refine limits the power and potential contributions of participants. These 3 traditions may also be 3 different natural types of studies to publish or perform. Documenting and publishing the entirety of design processes may be too comprehensive and may not fit well with a focused and concise scientific contribution. Prototyping and prototype use vary greatly within participatory design with old results. The intentions, effects, and manner of inclusion needs to be clearly defined and described. We urge participatory design practitioners to explicitly answer 3 questions when describing the involvement of old adults in participatory design. Who is included in each prototyping and prototype activity? How are they included in these activities? Why are they involved? This systematic literature review examined the role of the use of prototypes and prototyping in participatory design with old results. We analyzed 76 studies and created 10 descriptive forms of use of prototype and prototyping to characterize its use in participatory design with old results. Our analysis further examines the prevalence of each category of forms of use, as well as who participates within these forms of activities. The analysis in this review showed that old adults were more commonly involved in prototyping and prototype use by evaluating and refining, more often than decide, teach, explore, and generate, which relate more to the central principles and goals in participatory design. The principal component analysis further highlighted 3 somewhat separate practices within prototyping and prototype use. These 3 clusters may be a natural grouping corresponding to 3 subtle types of study design, or they may reflect 3 different traditions or views on prototyping and prototype use within participatory design with older adults. The third cluster has many similarities to user-centered design and less so to participatory design. Yet these forms of prototyping and prototype use are vital in participatory design as well.